2020 Summit League Tournament Preview, presented by the Volant, Coyote News, and Coyote Radio.
Hello, and welcome to the 2020 Summit League Tournament Preview presented by USD Student Media. I'm Cooper Seamer.
And I'm Aaliyah Burgraff. Tonight, we'll be looking at who's all in this year's tournament, as well as how they got there. We'll also be sitting down with Bailey Zubke, sports editor of the Volant, to discuss each matchup.
We'll begin by looking back on how the season panned out on the women's side of the Summit League. The season ended close to what was predicted earlier in the year. Except for North Dakota and North Dakota State, there weren't too many surprises in conference play. However, the most surprising fact was how dominant South Dakota was on top of the league. The nationally ranked Coyotes went undefeated in conference play, beating opponents by an average of 25 points. Currently, the Yotes are ranked 17th in the nation by the AP and 12th in the coaches poll. South Dakota State finished second, the two separated from the rest of the league. Denver, Western Illinois, and Oral Roberts all finished 9 and 7. Denver got the 3 seed on the tiebreakers, and they'll face North Dakota State in the first round. North Dakota and Omaha finished 7th and 8th, respectively. Purdue-Fort Wayne missed the cut for the tournament, only winning 1 of their 16 games in the Summit League. Saturday's games start at noon as USD faces Omaha, followed by South Dakota State and North Dakota.
The men's side of conference play was a little less predictable. Aside from North Dakota State finishing first and Omaha at fourth, no team finished the season where they were slated in the preseason poll. North Dakota State and South Dakota State shadowed each other all season long, each grabbing a share of the Summit League regular season title. The Bison finished their season beating South Dakota State in overtime and Omaha. SDSU will go into the tournament as some players are struggling with injuries. South Dakota finished third after going on a win streak in the middle of the season, but losing 3 of their last 4. Omaha beat out Oral Roberts for the 4 seed on the breaker as the Golden Eagles finished with wins against Western Illinois and Purdue-Fort Wayne to finish their season. North Dakota lost their last game of the year to come in 6th, with Purdue-Fort Wayne finishing 7th. Denver snuck into the tournament in 8th after beating Western Illinois in their last game of the year. Coming up, a historic season for South Dakota, and we'll break down the top half of the women's bracket. You're watching the 2020 Summit League Preview Show on KYOT.
Headed into the tournament, the 1 seed was the goal for the Coyote women team at the beginning of the year. But the team also gained national recognition, sitting at 17th in the AP poll and 12th in the coaches poll. KYLT's Tel Tanner recapped the season and previews their matchup with Omaha.
After a historic season full of never-before-seen accomplishment, the South Dakota Coyotes women's basketball team is only focused on what's next, and that is the Omaha Mavericks. Senior Kira Duffy says their game approach will not change in the postseason.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is tough. In Omaha, you know, they're the 8th seed, but they're a good 8th seed. And I think our mentality going forward is sort of the same as it's been, you know, from the beginning of the season, taking each game at a time. And so, yeah, they're the number one thing on our radar right now. Really athletic team. They have some really good inside presence. And so I think those are going to be the areas that we're kind of focusing on going in.
Duffy spoke with pride about our team's chemistry and ability to work together, saying their team is kind of like a family.
Basketball is a sport that is really dependent on your team chemistry. And I think we've, you know, developed those relationships off the court, and you can tell on the court, not only with I think, the way that we play and share the ball, but also just in the way that we interact with each other. You can tell that, we kind of like each other, yeah.
South Dakota will tip off against Omaha this Saturday, March 7th at 12 p.m. Central Time in the Denny Sanford Premier Center. For KYOT, I'm Tel Tanner.
The Yotes will kick off the tournament on Saturday at noon against Omaha. The winner will face between either Western Illinois or Oral Roberts. The number 4 ranked Golden Eagles finished the regular season exactly where they're projected to finish in the preseason poll. Finishing 9-7 in conference play, Oral Roberts ended their year with wins against Western Illinois and Purdue-Fort Wayne. Led by guard Kenny Joe Lippy, who averaged just over 18 points per game, they'll look to get into the semifinals where they could face off against USD, only losing by 4 in their latest meeting. Western Illinois also finished in the same spot where they started in the preseason poll, securing the number 5 seed. Along with their loss to Oral Roberts, the Leathernecks also dropped their last game of the year to Denver as the Golden Eagles overtook them on the tiebreaker. The Leathernecks are led by Olivia Kaufman, averaging just over 16 points and 5 rebounds per game. Although Oral Roberts will have the momentum headed into Sunday's first game, these two teams will be facing off each other after they just met over just a week ago. And with that, we'd like to welcome in Volant sports editor and our guest, Bailey Zupke. Now, Bailey, when you're looking at teams like the Coyotes, where they've had such a great season going forward, they've had such a dominant performance, but they have had a couple of skip-ups along the way. They haven't lost anything, but it's been down to close wire. Do you think that helps them in the long run, or is it sort of in the back of their head that we might be able to screw this up if we really don't pay attention?
I think it helps them in the sense of it keeps them motivated. They know that they aren't just going to be able to run through the tournament. They know that, we're not going to beat every opponent by 35 plus points. We know that there's going to be close games, that in March anything can happen. So, they beat Omaha by 32 and 33 points respectively in their 2 games, but they're going to prepare for that game as though Omaha beat them by 32, 33 points. And I think that's just kind of how USD has to look at every matchup in order to stay focused on what they've been able to do all season.
Now, a win going to the semifinals could mean a rematch against Oral Roberts, a team that's played them the closest this year so far, only losing by 4 points to the Coyotes. Is that something that they might have in the back of their head, or are they pretty much just looking to, once we get to the semifinals, it'll be a completely different matchup again?
I think every game is a different matchup, obviously, and I think that they're aware of that. So they know going into the semifinals that Oral Roberts, they could play better than they did when they were down in Tulsa, or they could play worse. We don't know. It just depends on who comes out. Maybe Kenny Joe Lippy just shoots the lights out of the building. They have to be prepared for that. Maybe Kenny Joe Lippy can't hit a shot, and the Coyotes don't have to try quite as hard. Nobody really knows. So I think ultimately, if you are the Coyotes, you're going to prepare for the worst ultimately, and that is, Kenny Joe Lippy's just playing great, and Oral Roberts is dominating, and they're not committing turnovers, and they're just playing a strong game. So I think for the Coyotes, it's just keeping that motivation, like I said earlier, and just continuing on what they've been able to do all year.
In the other matchup, Western Illinois and Oral Roberts, the Leathernecks just lost to the Golden Eagles not too long ago, just over about a week and a half ago. They're coming in this game off a couple different stumbles. What are they going to have to do to kind of rebound off of that and go back up against the team that just beat them?
I think if you're Western Illinois, you just have to get back to who you are. They're a very good three-point shooting team, and they shoot the three a lot. And they just have to get back to doing that, and they have to get back to forcing turnovers and putting Oral Roberts in tough situations. Because like I was just talking about, Oral Roberts' offense is very deadly. They're also a very good three-point shooting team. The conference kind of as a whole is. So for Western Illinois, they just have to try and get back in the rhythm of who they are. They force a lot of turnovers, and they shoot the three a lot, and they do it pretty well. If they can do that, I have full confidence they should be able to compete with Oral Roberts, if not beat Oral Roberts.
Thank you, Bailey. It's a very interesting top half of the bracket with some potential spoilers. Coming up after the break, Aaliyah Berggraf will break down the bottom half of the women's bracket. You're watching the 2020 Summit League preview show on KYOT.
There aren't many things better than being part of a team. Here, we have each other's backs. The friends, memories, and lessons learned will stay with us for the rest of our lives. On this team, we give our all. We are USD Women's Rugby. Join the team. Don't know how to play? We'll teach you.
Come to practice in the Dakota Dome Monday from 7 to 9 and Thursday from 8:30 to 10 to see if rugby is for you.
And welcome back. The South Dakota State women will enter the Summit League tournament this year as the 2 seed. The Jackrabbits are in the pursuit of their third tournament championship in a row. KYOT's Sean Henley breaks down the Jacks' path.
The South Dakota State women, coached by Aaron Johnson in his 20th season, will enter the Summit League tournament with a 21-9 overall record and a 13-3 conference record. This year's tournament will be the first in 4 years without Madison Giebert and Macy Miller, two of the best players in program history. The Jackrabbits not only have won back-to-back Summit League tournament championships, but they are searching for their 10th championship victory in the last 12 seasons. The Jackrabbits this season have scored non-conference victories over the likes of South Florida, Notre Dame, and Green Bay, but have come up short against the likes of Drake, Creighton, and Oregon. The team is led in scoring by sophomore Peyton Burkhardt, who is averaging 14.5 points per game. Burkhardt scored her career-high 27 points against North Dakota on January 16th and has scored in double figures in 24 straight games. The team has been through some adversity this season, especially losing the All-Summit League preseason first-team honoree Maya Selland back on December 5th due to injury. SCSU lost the season series against arch rival South Dakota. They know there's a good chance of a third meeting between the two teams in the Summit League tournament, and they are ready for redemption.
I think for sure, yeah. I think this is a big motivation for us. We know that we're right there, just a couple more plays go our way, and we're right there.
The Jackrabbits will take on the 7th-seeded North Dakota Fighting Hawks in the first round of the Summit League tournament, who they swept in the regular season, winning 99-64 in Brookings and 74-61 in Grand Forks. For KYOT, I'm Sean Henley.
The Jackrabbits' first round game against North Dakota will tip off at 2:30 p.m. on Saturday. In the final matchup of the women's bracket, number 3 Denver takes on North Dakota State. The Pioneers 15-14 overall and 9-7 in the Summit League, coming in at third the conference preseason poll. The Pioneers finished the season on a 6-game win streak, with their last loss coming to the Coyotes a month ago. Madison Nielsen leads Denver with over 19 points and 11 rebounds per game. Lauren Lovin arranged 15 points per game as well. The two seniors will be the backbone for the team headed into the tournament. They'll square off against North Dakota State, who finished 6th in the league. The Bison split the series with Denver this year, stealing an overtime win against the Pioneers back in late January. Since then, they've gone 5-4, finishing the season with a 3-point win over Denver. Michelle Geisler-Ovas leads the team with 13 points per game, while Emily Dietz leads in the rebounds with 7.5 per game. And with that, I'd like to welcome back Bailey Zubke. So the Denver women finished where they were expected to this season, but was it how they thought they were going to get there?
Not necessarily. They had a slow start to conference play, but they've won their last 6 games. So strong finish for the Pioneers. You know, Madison Nelson and Lauren Levin, they struggled early in conference play, but they've really picked it up as of late. So I think for Denver, the second half of conference play was a lot better than the first.
So if the Denver women do win this game, there is a very good chance they're going to have to take on South Dakota State. What would they have to do to try and upset the Jacks for this game?
I think they have to do exactly what they did in Frost Arena just a few weeks ago. They beat the Jackrabbits in Frost Arena a couple of weeks ago. So really for the Pioneers rather, they just need to go out and attack inside with Madison Nelson and let Lauren Levin do her thing and try and slow down the Jackrabbits inside, because the Jackrabbits aren't as strong on the perimeter shooting the 3 as they were in previous years with Macy Miller and Madison Giebert.
So for North Dakota State, how big is it that they beat Denver earlier in the year, knowing that they could possibly do it again?
The interesting thing with North Dakota State is of their last, I believe, 9 games, they've alternated wins and losses. So they win a game, lose a game, win a game, lose a game, and they won their season finale. So by that reasoning, they should lose. But the thing is North Dakota State's been playing well as of late compared to what was expected. It'll be interesting to see, but I think it gives them a little bit of confidence knowing they can win.
So with that being said, what do they have to do to try and, repeat this performance?
I think they just have to kind of do what they did the first time around. North Dakota State's just got to be aggressive. They don't have one player that stands out more than everybody else. They shoot the ball really well in general from all over the court, where Denver is much better from the 3-point arc. So defend the 3-point arc and then just do what you do best.
All right, well, thank you, Bailey. Coming up, Cooper Seamer will cover the top half of the men's bracket, and we'll see how far the NDSU Bison can go. You're watching the 2020 Summit League Preview Show on KYOT.
Gallagher Center for Experiential Learning and Education Abroad provides students once-in-a-lifetime opportunities through many of our student-centered programming.
Through the Gallagher Center, I can find experiences such as service learning, study abroad,
National Student Exchange,
and undergraduate research.
Visit our website to learn more about all the cool things you can do through the Gallagher Center.
I like shooting live because you have a greater responsibility. You get to go out, get hands-on experience in the field, and you know it's leading you to something great for the future. I really like the teamwork and being able to communicate with people. We all know what jobs we're supposed to be doing, and we all know what needs to get done. There's something about being live outside of the studio. Being on your own, it's just a different energy. I like being part of a team and working together to get the perfect interview. I think it's worth it from all the experience and all the skills you're going to get from it. It definitely helps you break down some barriers and opens you up to new experiences.
And welcome back. There were many upsets and surprises in the men's side of the Summit League this year. However, one thing that wasn't was where North Dakota State would finish coming into the tournament at the top of the Summit League. The Bison had a tough fight to stay atop the league, with South Dakota State falling behind all season long. They picked up a crucial win against the Jackrabbits in overtime last week, helping them grab a share of the regular season title. Vinny Shaheed leads Bison in scoring with 18 points per game. Tyson Ward also plays a crucial role on offense, grabbing 16 points per game of his own. North Dakota State is looking for their second straight Summit League tournament win. They'll face 8-seed Denver, who just made the tournament after beating Western Illinois in their final game of the year. Ade Murkey leads the Pioneers in scoring, averaging 18.5 points per game this season. Chase Townsend, who at one point was leading the league in scoring, is averaging almost 17 points per game. The two teams will play on Saturday at 6:30. Oral Roberts and Omaha will have a tough match as the 4 and 5 seeds, as they both had ups and downs throughout the season. Oral Roberts went 9-7 in conference play, finishing their last 2 games with wins. The Golden Eagles only lost 1 game at home, but they struggled on the road with a 3-12 record. Emmanuel Nizikwezi was the backbone for the team, averaging 17 points and 10 rebounds per game this season. DeAndre Byrne had 15 points per game, and Max Amos had 14.5. The high-powered Golden Eagles offense will have a tough test in Omaha, with their team splitting the series in the regular season. KJ Robinson runs the offense for the Mavericks, averaging 15 points per game. JT Gibson and Matt Pyle are also averaging double-digit points in the season. Omaha and Oral Roberts will tip off Sunday night at 6. So, with Bailey, welcome back. North Dakota State has been able to really stay atop the Summit League so far this year, but it hasn't really necessarily been an easy fight. What's some of the things that they struggled with so far this season that they're going to have to kind of correct, knowing that the competition is going to be much harder than it was?
You know, I think the main thing they're going to have to focus on is just consistent play. We saw when they played the Coyotes both times, it's a very close game, up and down, and just kind of overall, they did drop a game to Oral Roberts. And Denver's been a really consistent team this year. They don't get blown out very often, and they don't really, obviously, blow anybody out with just a few wins. So if you're North Dakota State, just finding Vinny Shaheed, Tyson Ward, and just keep those guys in action. And Rocky Cruiser himself also had a very productive season, so just sticking with your role players.
North Dakota State had close games against both SDSU and South Dakota throughout the season. So if they make it to the semifinals, if they make it to that championship game, knowing those two teams are on the other side of the bracket, is that something that's going to be in the back of their head, knowing that it's not going to be an easy way there, or are they, maybe not concerned about that just yet?
I think that's something that they're aware of. When you look at what they did last season as well, they returned a lot of the team from last year, and last year they were in that 4-5 matchup in the first round. Thankfully, they didn't have to play South Dakota State in the semifinal, who was the 1 seed last year. But they still made it to the championship game. They made it to the tournament. They took on Duke in the tournament. They got an opportunity to kind of see what it's like to make a tournament run. So coming into this year with the high expectations, I think for them, they're used to it by now. They know what's expected of them. They know that it's going to be tough competition and tournament play, and I think they're ready for whatever anybody throws at them.
Now, Oral Roberts and Omaha have both split their series with 1 game apiece so far, and they're on paper seemingly even. On a neutral court like this up in Sioux Falls, who do you think has the upper hand?
I think it'll be interesting because Omaha obviously has the lesser travel as coming from Omaha to Sioux Falls, whereas Oral Roberts has to travel all the way from Tulsa. The other interesting thing, though, is Oral Roberts is very senior heavy. They have 5 seniors compared to just 2 for Omaha. And, you mentioned it, though. They're very even on paper. Both teams winning 4 of their last 5 games. So there's not a major concern about, well, one team's coming in hotter than the other. So really, it's an interesting thing. Will the experience wash out the fact that Omaha's going to have more fans, they're closer to home? Or will that home court advantage in this specific matchup play to their favor?
And you mentioned that sort of senior experience that the team has. What area do you think on offense or defense or just the general attitude of the team going in is going to be able to split this even game in half?
I think it'll be interesting. Emmanuel Nezekwesi is a huge piece for Oral Roberts. If he can go out there and do what he does best, attack the boards, grab rebounds, and put points in the basket, he'll play a big role. But then so will Kevin O'Banner, who's just a sophomore. Who's been in and out this season. He hasn't always been the most consistent player. It'll be interesting, though. Omaha 7th in offensive scoring, 8th in defensive scoring. So statistically, they should be towards the bottom of the league, and they're not. So obviously, there's something there that Omaha's doing right.
Of course. Thank you, Bailey. When we come back, we'll take a look at both USD and SDSU's men's teams. You're watching the 2020 Summit League Tournament Preview Show on KYOT.
Lately, you might have seen one of these red stands around campus and wondered, hey, what's the Volant? Well, actually, it's pronounced the Volant. We've served as the student's voice since 1887. We capture the moments and the stories that matter and bring them to you for free on both digital and print platforms. News, verb, sports, opinion. It's important to you, it's important to us, because, well, we're one and the same. We're the Volant. Pick us up.
And welcome back. Finally, we get to the bottom of the men's bracket, where both South Dakota State and South Dakota will play. For the Jackrabbits, a predictable preseason finish of 5th place wouldn't be enough, as the team has played its way into 2nd place. The Jacks had their struggles in the season, mostly in the injury troubles of Douglas Wilson, but still bench players stepped up and contributed, allowing SDSU to rotate in a large amount of players. Wilson averaged 18.5 points per game, with Matt Dentlinger and Noah Friedel finishing double digits. However, head coach Eric Henderson says that the team plays best when they have players stepping up and playing their best with the minutes given to them.
We've had a lot of guys pick us up in different moments. Going into the year, I thought it was going to be one of our strengths is our balance, and it could be different guys on different nights, and that's certainly been the case. Obviously, Doug has had a really, really special year, but we've had a lot of young men that have had really good years.
Whether or not Douglas Wilson is healthy will be the key for SDSU moving forward. The Jacks will face off against Purdue Fort Wayne Saturday evening at 6. In the final game of the men's side, the South Dakota Coyotes will face off against North Dakota. The Coyotes had a great run in the middle of their season, winning 8 straight, including a win against South Dakota State. But they stumbled near the end of their season, falling to Oral Roberts, SDSU, and North Dakota State. A win over North Dakota locked in up the 3 seed, but they'll have a tough challenge in facing the Fighting Hawks for the second time in just over a week. Tyler Hagedorn finished the season with 18 points per game, with Stanley Amude at 16.5. Senior guard Tristan Simpson says that while the team has their ups and downs, they believe that they can beat anyone in the league.
We'll have the day off tomorrow, and we'll come back on Monday and be ready to work. And, they're a physical team, and they just try to physically beat you up. So, we got to be prepared for that and be ready to take a couple hits. They're going to be coming right at us. But, yeah, no, there's no problem seeing them again.
The Coyotes will face North Dakota, with the series this season getting heated. The Fighting Hawks' Marlon Stewart has been lights out, scoring almost 19 points per game on the season. The game wraps up the first 2 days of the tournament, tipping off at 8:30 Sunday evening. And for the last time, we welcome Bailey Zubke to discuss this interesting matchup. Bailey, starting off with South Dakota State, Doug Wilson, with his injuries, how are they going to do this? Do you think that they're going to play him at all? Are they going to play him for a full minute?
It'll be interesting to see for sure. The sounds of it is as of last week, he was still in a walking boot. We haven't really heard anything since, as they haven't played since last Thursday. He was listed as questionable for that first round game. More than likely, I expect to see him in the Summit League tournament at some point, whether that's in the first round or the championship game. If they make it that far, we'll see. But I feel that the team has enough pieces around them that they aren't concerned about playing him if he's not 100%. They're more focused on just trying to play whoever is ready to play. And if Doug Wilson's at 50% or 60%, they're not going to play him.
Noah Friedel has been coming off great in the bench for the Jackrabbits. As a freshman, he's been averaging 11 points per game so far. What kind of role has he taken in this team? The player that came from South Dakota is now playing up at SDSU.
He's filled in a big role for them as kind of, at first as a bench player, but then once they saw the talent that he has, he started playing a lot more. And then now, he's scoring 20 points a game over the last few games. He put, I believe it was 26 against South Dakota, 28 against Omaha. So he's been playing very well down the stretch. It's interesting, they only have 3 players scoring in double figures right now. So and Doug Wilson being one of them, if he's out, that puts them down to 2 main role players. It'll be interesting to see how much bigger of a role will he take if Doug Wilson doesn't play.
So for the Coyotes, they lost 3 of their last 4 games. Even though they did win the last game, what do you think those losses are going to do for the mentality?
At first I think it maybe brought it down a little bit as you saw Tyler Hagedorn, Tristan Simpson, Stanley Muda. They were struggling a little bit on the court, but that big win against North Dakota on Senior Day, I think fixed a lot of those issues. Now they're like, we can win. We can beat people. We beat North Dakota, just got to play them again. If you beat them, then, it's downhill from there. So it's just building momentum off of that win.
And this team is very starter heavy, and they've had very few bench points coming in to the games, and their bench hasn't been very productive as much as they would maybe hope for. Do you see that changing that at all going into this, or is it going to stick to the same starter heavy rotation we've seen?
That's a really good question. I think ultimately not much will change because Todd Lee knows what's been working for them. This team, 20 wins this season. They had an 8-game winning streak, which is the longest winning streak any of these seniors have been on. So I think Todd Lee's not going to change much. I would personally like to see more out of the bench. I'd like to see more Brandon Armstrong, more Tassos Kamateros, more Cruz Pearl Hunt, whoever it may be off the bench. I'd love to see them more. I don't know that they'll change too much just because it's what has been working, and it's what should continue to work for them.
Okay, thank you, Bailey. And now with that, we've looked over all the brackets, and we didn't know how they're going to end up. Bailey, what are your predictions for the women's bracket?
I think the women's bracket's going to be pretty cut and dry. I expect the Coyotes and Jackrabbits to win their first 2-round games. And I expect them to be playing Western Illinois and Denver in the second round. I think those two teams are playing better right now, and they fit the matchups better. But ultimately, I think the Coyotes and Jackrabbits square off for round 3. I'm going to take the Coyotes in this one. I think the Coyotes took the strongest hit the Jackrabbits could give them up at Frost Arena, and they still won by 10. It just shows to the level of how great this Coyote team really is.
And on the men's side, too, as well?
On the men's side, I am going to go with Oral Roberts in that 4-5 matchup taking on North Dakota State, and I'm going to go with the 2 South Dakota schools on the other half of the bracket. Ultimately, I'm going to go with the higher seeds. I could easily see Oral Roberts pulling an upset and going to the championship game. They are extremely talented, the top offense in the conference. I don't think they'll do it, though. I think NDSU wins that one. And I look at the USD-SDSU matchup. It's going to be a close one. I think it ultimately depends on if Doug Wilson plays or not. Doug Wilson didn't play when they played in Vermillion. The Coyotes won by a lot. Doug Wilson played up in Frost Arena. The Jackrabbits won. I think Doug Wilson plays. I'm going to go with the Jacks. I'm actually going to go with NDSU over SDSU in the championship because I think Vinny Shahid's going to be the big difference maker. The Jackrabbits I don't think have a guard that can keep up with Vinny Shahid, so I think he's going to be the difference maker and the reason the Bison return to the NCAA tournament.
Okay, thank you, Bailey. And that's going to do it for us here at KYLT. Thank you for watching the USD Student Media's 2020 Summit League Tournament Preview Show presented by the Volant, Coyote News, and Coyote Radio.
Be sure to follow along with the USD social media accounts during the tournament for highlights and recap. Tune into KAOR 91.1 FM during each Coyote game for live coverage.
Thank you, and have a good night.